Well, I can imagine that buying a home can be such a fun and rewarding process, but it can also get kind of stressful,
Well,
right?
listen here, but you got the mortgage, right?
Yes.
You got maybe the home inspections, then you want to close on time.
Yeah.
You know, those are just some of the obstacles you really need to think about and be prepared for.
Well, who better to help you get ready than Keller Williams Realtor, Troy Trumm. Welcome back, Troy.
Welcome back, Troy. Good to see you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. I mean, what are the first steps that someone should take when they're looking into buying a home?
Well, the first thing a buyer should do is decide who's going to represent them on the purchase. Frequently, buyers, they simply, if they're interested in a home, they call the listing agent. But the listing agent represents the seller's interest, not the buyer's interests. So they first need to decide who they trust to be their advocate, discuss what they're looking for, and then rely on them to look at homes. Rather than calling one agent for this home, another agent for that home, the process is much faster when they have somebody they can rely on to be their advocate and represent their interests. And the second thing they need to do is talk to a lender. A good lender can tell a buyer how much they can afford to buy, what their monthly payment would be, what they need for a down payment, and what they can do to increase their credit score in order to get a lower interest rate.
Well, that's the thing, that mortgage, talking to a lender is pretty critical up front, because if you start home shopping, you get out there, and you don't have those T's crossed and the I's dotted when it comes to that loan, it could really hold things up, and it could actually prevent the sale of the home. Right. So when you talk to a lender, there's a difference between being pre-approved and pre-qualified. Those are two different things. Can you break that down for us?
Often the terms are mistakenly used interchangeably, but there is a difference. Pre-qualified means that based on the information the buyers provide on their loan application, the lender believes the buyer can get a loan.
Yeah.
Whereas pre-approved means that the lender has collected documentation, including tax returns, bank statements, and pay stubs, and based on that, the lender has confirmed the buyer can get a mortgage.
Okay, well, another part of this is the home inspections that he mentioned. I know I don't know much about that, but what does the average buyer need to know about those?
Well, first, the buyer needs to understand the time frame to provide the seller response after the inspection is done. Once the inspection is completed, the buyer has three options. They can accept the home as it is, they can request the seller make some repairs, or if they're not satisfied with the inspection, they can back out of the purchase. But they need to make that decision before the response deadline expires. Next, they need to know that the inspection is a visual inspection of the home and a test of its systems. The home inspector is not going to disassemble the home to examine the innards. For example, the inspector will take off the access panel of the furnace, but he's not going to disassemble it to look at each component. He'll test a ceiling fan to see it works, but he's not going to take it down to see if it's wired properly.
Right.
And then last, the buyer needs to know to read the entire inspection report. There's a lot of information in there, and it's the buyer's responsibility to read that report and understand the issues that were found.
There are critical things you want to look at. I mean, you're talking roof, you're talking foundation, you're talking some of the mechanical as well. And then once you get past that process, there are still some potential obstacles because you want to close on time. What are some of those obstacles that could prevent you from closing the deal when you want to?
Sure. First, the buyer needs to understand that a closing date is an approximate date. If there's a delay with financing or title work, that closing date might get moved back by a couple days. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen. But obstacles to closing, the first one and most common is probably within the buyer's control, which is the buyer providing information to the lender when the lender requires it. The lender might need information on a debt or a change in income. Any delay in getting that information to the lender could result in the closing being delayed. And another one that I think a lot of people don't think about is obstacle could be the agents themselves. I sometimes have to deal with part-time agents who during the day they're working another job, so I can't reach them.
We talked about that,
If a time-sensitive issue comes up that needs to be dealt with right away, a delay from dealing with a part-time agent could mean the buyer's not closing on time.
Yeah, if you have to wait a half day or even a full 8 hours to get a hold of the other agent, that could present some problems.
Absolutely. Well, as an agent, for you, are there any topics or subjects that you have to avoid in this?
There are. Because of fair housing laws, there are certain questions a buyer might ask that I can't answer for them. The most common is a buyer asking if a particular neighborhood is a safe neighborhood. It would be a fair housing violation for me to generalize a neighborhood as unsafe. And my opinion of safe may not be the same as a buyer's opinion. So what I advise them to do is call the police department, get a crime report, and then also drive through neighborhoods. See which neighborhoods they're comfortable with and which ones they're not.
Right.
Let's look at a few misconceptions when it comes to buying home. What are some of those out there?
Well, the biggest financial misconception is that it's all about price, when really the interest rate has a bigger impact on the monthly mortgage payment than the price of the home.
Sure.
The mortgage payment on a $300,000 home at today's interest rates is about the same as a mortgage payment on a $270,000 home if interest rates just go up by 1%.
Okay.
So the interest rate on the mortgage has a bigger impact on the monthly payment than the purchase price of the home.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, for buyers out there, I'm sure you have plenty of advice, right? Mm-hmm. What do you advise for them?
You mean as far as finding the right home?
As far as, yeah, making sure that you don't buy the wrong home.
Sure. Well, I think buyers first need to be clear on the reasons for buying a home. Are they looking to downsize to save money? Do they need more space because their family's growing? And then keep those reasons in the forefront of their mind as they're looking at homes so they can decide if a particular home meets their requirements. What I do is what I provide my clients with is a buyback guarantee, where if they're not happy with the home in the first 12 months, then I'll buy it back from them.
Okay,
If me and my team sell somebody a home they don't love, then we didn't do our job.
Right.
Yeah, that's
a
your
good
guarantee. You offer that
yes.
to all your clients, don't you?
Yep.
And that's something you've done for, how long have you been doing that?
I've been in business for 13 years or so.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
that sounds-
that's great. That sets you apart.
Sounds pretty safe to
Yes,
me.
it does.
It's just you want to make sure you don't want to get into a home that you don't want. You know, there's so much work that goes into it from the buyer's standpoint, the seller, and all the people in between, from the lender to the real estate agents.
Right.
And so you got to have some professionals, and that's where Troy Trumm comes into play here. TrummTeam.com is the website, or give him a call at 402-884-4848. Troy, good to see you.
Yes,
Have a good holiday.
absolutely.
Over here.
Happy
You too.
holidays.
All right.